Hi, I'm Woody and welcome to Woody Minis. Today I'm going to be showing you my almost 3,000 points of Kitbashed Custodes army. To start with, I'm just going to do an overview of the whole army and then put it together in a timeline of the order of which I've painted it so that you guys can see what I've done over the past year and how I've improved as a kitbasher and painter. Before starting this army, the last time I touched a piece of Warhammer was about 20 years ago when I was just a small lad. I loved it back then and would have a great time painting and making things together with my brothers in the garden, or just having little casual games with them, just throwing dice around and seeing who could kill the most of their opposing armies. Since then, I stopped for about 20 years because, of course, Warhammer is expensive and I just sort of fell out of the hobby. But after seeing more of it posted online, on Instagram, on Reddit, and other different medias, I thought it would be a good time to do something fun, to do something creative and interesting, to learn a new skill. Now that I was fully committed to getting back onto the plastic crack, I had to choose a beginner-friendly faction to start with, and after reading online about the low cost per points models of the Adeptus Custodes, I settled on them. I went on different subreddits and searched for different hashtags on Instagram and other places to get some inspiration, and I saw a lot of gold, and I wanted to try something new for my first ever model. So let's start with my first Warhammer miniature in 20 years. This guy is my first ever miniature, and when I was choosing my Custodes army theme, I didn't want to go with the usual gold. I wanted them to look a bit more like I imagine in the lore, to really bump something up to 11, and this was the age that they live. Custodes can live seemingly for an infinite amount of time, and I imagined this guy guarding a place for so long that his armor had turned to stone and became overgrown with all of these bits of moss that you can see here. I don't know why I picked a ridiculously expensive model to do this, and my paint job is, well, it's very beginnery. I tried to do a marble theme for the stone to make it a bit more interesting, and there's lots of bits I missed, especially the bits in the gaps here. I just really didn't know what I was doing. I'd forgotten a lot over 20 years. But he was the start of the Woodstodes, because I started to really love all the moss, all the plants, and all the overgrown things that you see here. I really enjoyed painting him, and I decided that we'll keep going in this direction. I tested out the scheme on this infantry model, the Blade Champion. I tried to do it a bit more detailed this time and ended up giving him a collar of grass around here. And I wanted to do something new each time I painted a miniature or each time I started a squad or project. And for this guy, I wanted to work on energy weapons. They're so prominent in 40k and in Age of Sigmar. Glowing swords are just cool. And so I looked up a few tutorials online and I painted these guys' swords in a green glowing ethereal colour. I was really happy with him, and it gave me a bit more of an idea. I didn't want my army just to be made of stone and overgrown. I wanted them to be corrupted by nature itself. I wanted them to have been lost for so long that they were becoming one with the environment around them. And of course, that involves warp shenanigans. This model is my first ever kitbash, and I'm sure you can guess what he was kitbashed with. And my favourite thing about him is actually that I wanted to try not just kitbashing for the first time ever, but also magnetizing, and so I was a bit overexcited and I magnetized absolutely everything I could about this guy. His head can move, usually. He's misbehaving. There we go. His head can move. His arm can move. His other arm is able to be taken off, and the wrist joint, more magnets. The torso, more magnets. And to be honest, I did this because I wanted to learn magnetism, well, magnetizing minis, and I also wanted to be able to pose him in a way I see fit, like this. I added lots of different parts from the Sylvaneth Treelord kit. This is a Sylvaneth Treelord torso. This is a leg joint. This is obviously the Tree Lord's weapon, a really cool leafy sword. It wasn't painted to my best quality. We're still seeing some mistakes with the painting, especially the things in the gap, like the white stuff over here. But it was my third ever miniature, and I was just starting to get a hang of things and just getting a taste for the good stuff. It was around this time that there was a new model for the Adeptus Custodes and a new codex too, and it was pretty underwhelming from what I gathered by the community. It was a shield captain with melter spear. I mean, he's supposed to look like this guy, but he only came in a big group set battle box, which I didn't really want. But I did have a squad of wardens, and I did have a squad of shield guard, custodian guards, and I used one of the warden bodies to make this. This is a shin from the Tree Lord. We've got some bits and pieces from the Tree Lord, like little bits of wood, and I made his weapon a bit special for the melter spear. I cut off the axe. No, I cut off the spear and attached it at the top, as well as a melter given to me by a friend, and it was pretty cool. I was happy with it, and for this I tried OSL on the skull, and it works pretty good if I have the right lighting. But enough about him, let's move on. Now thoroughly addicted to buying new minis, instead of building a troop choice, I built my warlord, Trajann Valoris, as an Arthurian legend, the Green Knight. By now I was fully committed to the Woodstodes theme, and I wanted them to look supernatural, in one with nature, and so I used a lot of stuff on this to convert him into what I wanted. This cape is not, this hood is not actually a hood, it's just lots of these green leaves, hobby leaves that you normally use for decorating dioramas, that I've just kind of layered over his head. I'll give you a closer look. And it looks a lot like a hood of leaves, giving him a really ghostly appearance. The armor I wanted to stand out a bit more. I tried to paint it like a jade, with all those veins and layers that you can see, with a lot of depth, and it works really well in my opinion. The leaf cape took a huge amount of time, and never again, I say every time. And instead of the usual lion that would go on Trajan's shoulder, I've added this Durfu's face, angry, screaming. I like it, it's a nice touch. And of course, who could forget his bouquet of flowers instead of the shield and feather. My warlord was ready, and I could start building other miniatures. Well, I mean, currently my army was 2 dreadnoughts and 3 characters, so I did have enough points for a 1,000-point game, but that's not really what I wanted. I wanted a whole army of them, and this is what I did. I purchased a Kurnoth Hunter set, which are basically like Terminators from the Sylvaneth range, and I got lots of cool pieces I thought I could add to their armor, like an overgrown effect. These were shoulder pads. They also came with lots of little things that I could use to decorate the base. They got a Citadel Skulls box, and for this squad, I wanted them to look like a kill team. I wanted them to look like hunters in a jungle, hunting down some interlopers that had strayed into my army's territory. And I gave them lots of little things to sort of try and sell a narrative. It was my first real push at selling some action in the miniatures. I gave them interesting things like skulls that you can imagine that they're using to track prey or track an interloper or a demon that's come to see them. You've also probably noticed that the helmets are 3D printed, and I just wanted something a little bit different to stand out. They're a bit Spartan-like, and I thought it was pretty cool, but again, my paint job is lacking, but we've sold some nice narratives here. For this guy, for example, I think of him having lots of forest familiars that they're protecting, and these familiars guide them and help them in their battles. Like this guy is going for a strike up top, his familiars striking from the bottom, and they look like a deadly duo together. And a kill team wouldn't be complete without, some sort of roguey character with a short blade and a spear. And I imagine this guy has cornered his quarry and is just preparing to execute them, or even to sacrifice them with the dagger here to whatever force has corrupted these custodes. And my favourite of the bunch, I imagine this one as like a seeker. He's sending off his familiar into their air to scout out the prey, root them out so that him and his squad can chase them down and get rid of them. By now I'd had quite enough of painting marble day after day, so I went for something a bit different. I'd been reading the Berserk comic book series, and I had the whole box of Citadel skulls for my basing, and I thought, what if I made a giant base out of skulls, and stuck a Berserk Blade Champion on top. Now this guy is a Blade Champion, the official set plastic kit, but he's also got a STL file printed of the great sword from Berserk, the huge slab of iron. And he's also got the special helmet from the Berserk armor, as well as some custom shoulder pads with the symbol of the eclipse on it. And just honestly, I just wanted to try something new with painting, and what better way than the tribute to the author of these comics. So I went with a comic book style, just simply primed him black with a paintbrush at this point, and just used lots of white paint with a small brush and small brush strokes to just sketch in a bit of detail. And I was really happy with this guy. I think he looks pretty cool, and he fits my army theme a little bit because I added the green glow to the symbols, the helmet, and his short blade down here. I kept with the spooky theme for my next model. I had been checking out this guy on Instagram, Unwanted Leg, and he makes the scariest Chaos Space Marines I have ever seen. I wanted to try something similar with the Sisters of Silence. I believe these guys should be super scary with their null aura that drives people away from them, huge aversion, banishes demons, null psychic powers, and I wanted them to look scary as I possibly could. I primed them with a glossy black and then used contrast paints to paint key details of the armor, as well as the glow. Well, I say paint key details, I just put it on top like a glow effect after doing the weapons. For this one, I wanted to try a different weapon effect, something flamey, warpy, scary, and I think I did a pretty good job of it. Again, the skulls are just from the Citadel skull kit, and these antlers are just little off clips from the Sylvaneth range. Now, what Warhammer army would be complete without Terminators, and I just so happened to love these guys, but I thought they could be improved, so to speak, with a little help from the Sylvaneth range. I purchased a box of Valoris Terminators, these three guys. I also purchased some Achilis Terminators from Forge World, the ones with the big shoulder pads. Huge. I kitbashed them together with Kurnoth Hunters because I saw the box art and they have these amazing glowing chest pieces with almost like a seed inside, and I knew I had to have it for my army. It was also my first time trying to use tree moss powder as moss, and I think it looks really nice. It was also my first time fully customized, well, second time because of the Terminator Tree Lord, using these weapons, and they are beautiful. They look like leaves that are power blades, and with a bit of snipping I managed to get them onto the Terminators. And I love the Achilis Terminators because they have these huge chunky legs that are the same style as the dreadnoughts. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm not that happy with the paint jobs, to be honest. Still improving, because I can see all these white bits down here that I've kind of unpainted, and at some point I might go back and fix them, but I think it's probably easier to build a new one. And those guys needed a leader, so I had a lot of spare things from my previous kit bashing attempts. So I built this monstrosity, and he is huge. To give you an idea of how big he is, let me just get one of these normal Terminators, and yeah, he's absolutely massive, and I built him using bits from 6 different kits from a couple of different armies. He's obviously got the Kurnoth Hunter chest, he's got the Achilis Terminator legs and shoulder pads, he's got the Blade Champion helmet from the Berserk Blade Champion, and he's also got the Achilis Dreadnought Dread Spear chopped up with a bolter from the Valoris Terminators, alongside with the tip of a Blade Champion sword, as well as antlers from the Tree Lord kit as well. And the Leafy Cape I say I'd never did again, I'd never do again. The Leafy Cape I said I'd never do again. Yeah, I may have added that as well. And I love him. He does look a bit like a mint chocolate chip ice cream, but other than that, I was super happy with this guy. He's huge, he's intimidating, and he fits right in with my army. I was on a bit of a buzz after making that guy and being so happy with it, so I purchased myself a Forge World exclusive model from eBay. And this is Ixion Hale, and he comes with a very unique pose, unique weapon, and unique armor as well, which is what I really loved about him. So he deserved, of course, a unique color scheme. Similar to Trajann, but this one I went with autumnal colors. He also comes with this really cool basing top. He would have been bareheaded, but you know, a normal head doesn't really suit my army theme, so I worked extra hard to make him look haunted, glowing, and added what is probably my favourite OSL effect. With another shield captain down and out of the way, I felt it time to go back to my roots and work on something special. Meet Loraximus. He's an Achilis dreadnought that I converted, and he was made with more Tree Lord bits that I had lying around from another Tree Lord. This was an attempt at kind of like a diorama. I'd fleshed out more of the lore of my army in my head. These were custodians that fought the war in the webway, and they had been lost in the warp during the retreat. They had been sucked through a strange portal or taken away by some malign force and conscripted into the service of a new patron. One that likes gardens, but probably not the one you're thinking of. I wanted to show that they were not mindless or totally corrupted and evil-doing by giving them a less fighty pose, and this was my guy to try that out with. He's Loraximus, named after the Lorax from Dr. Zeus, and I gave him a little owl. This also came in the Tree Lord kit, and he looks pretty cool. There's one thing I do regret about this guy, and it is this bit. I added this at the back because I thought it would look cool, but it's too long. Every time I put it down, it kind of bends and is snapped once or twice. Bit of a pain in the butt. The shield on his back is also magnetized. You can see the little magnet here. And I can just clip it back on if I want, just to, you know, give a bit of what you see is what you get. Gosh, I love dreadnoughts. No Custodes army would be complete without wardens. Everywhere I look online, people say, oh, what unit should you bring? Yeah, you should bring some of these guys. And for these models, I wanted to do a bit of a different colour scheme. I mean, with a kitbashed army, if I ever play a game, I want my opponents to be able to differentiate my models at a glance. And so I called these wardens the Guardians of the Green, which is a little bit confusing since they're not guards, they are wardens. But I think they're pretty cool. The weapons came from the Kurnoth Hunters, and I decided that instead of having axes, my wardens would have scythes to represent them. I gave them a really haunted, undead theme to keep people guessing, are these custodians really alive, or is something just possessed their armour? I did these little things by drilling out the helmet from underneath where the neck is, with a 5mm drill bit, and then using some sprue clippers to just clip away really savagely the edges before sticking in a citadel skull and painting around it. I painted these guys just with contrast paints and added a tree moss cloak to them just by using super glue and sticking it on nice and quickly. It also marked the first Vexilia I made for the Woodstodes from a Tree Lord's head. Who would have guessed? I gave this guy a mask from the Kurnoth Hunters by trimming away the front of his helmet and just sticking it on with some putty and some plastic glue. I wanted him to look like he's extra blessed by whatever patron has taken over these guys. He is far too tall, even for this camera, but he's pretty cool and I love him. And my goodness, the Kurnoth, the Hunters from Sylvaneth, they have some cool weapons. I mean, gorgeous. Moving on. I've moved my camera back because it's my favourite model in my whole army next, and this is Mossicus Maximus, the Telmon dreadnought. He's been my favourite model so far. He was a joy to build, he was a joy to paint, and adding the weapon effects here using brass wire and some putty was just so fun. And my goodness, he's huge. I think the Telmon is the biggest dreadnought, apart from the newer Saturnine dreadnought that's been released, and he's just gorgeous. And I guess there were a few new things I did on him, the weapon effects for one, and it was actually the first time putting gold on a Custodes. He was looking a bit boring with just marble, so I added some Balthazar gold to these details, the Imperial Eagles and the things on his shins, and oh, he's just lovely. I absolutely adore this guy. He's an absolute beast. He comes with a few weapon options, so I did magnetize his arms and his hands, and he's probably the happiest paint job that I'm happiest the paint job I'm happiest with. Yeah, cool geezer. Next up we have my Sagittar guard squad, and these guys are basically a Forge World upgrade sprue that you just have a big bolter, special helmets, and some arms to hold the bolter. And you'd normally attach them to a Custodian guard kit, but I went a bit different and I chose to use some Stormcast Eternal kits, the Black Talons. They're basically a group of people that have a couple of Black Library novels about them, and they're all pretty unique. They're a bit like a D&D party. They've got some specialists there, and that made for some really interesting poses. And do you know what? They're actually very, very good size. They match up with the Custodians quite well. Let me give you an example. So these two are side by side, and they're the same height, same width. So I think they proxy pretty well, unless your opponent's being a bit too strict. They also come with lots of cool things like these birds, which fit in really well with my theme. They've all got a very unique pose, and it's led to some really interesting looks for them, which I quite like. It's very rare you get to see a Custodian chilling out and resting with his hand on a Draphic Destructor, but I'm sure he can tank the shots. Although for this one, I'm not quite happy with one of them, this guy in particular. He's not actually a Black Talon, he is a Night Quester, I believe. Not the 10-inch tall giant robots, but a guy going out on a quest from Age of Sigmar. Because the last member of the Black Talon squad was some sort of witchy lady, and I didn't really care for that. And I'm pretty upset with him because I messed up the OSL on all of his arm and his leg. It doesn't look quite right to me, so I'm not too happy with that, unfortunately. But overall, love the squad and I love the vibe it gives off. Next up we have an honorary Woodstodian. This is Inquisitor model Kyria Draxus. She's an agent of the Inquisition that can be taken as part of like an allied detachment. She attaches to battle line infantry. She gives them a lone operative at a risk of taking mortal wounds on poor rolls, and she has a really cool weapon that has anti-infantry devastating wounds, and it's pretty fantastic. She's a bit overcosted for other armies, but when your battle line troops a Custodian guard that cost about 200 points for a squad, she actually rocks, and she benefits from their double shooting rule too, which means her already awesome weapon is punching up into infantry ridiculously hard. This was my first time painting non-metallic armour, and I went for a green look for it, which I'm reasonably happy with as a first attempt. It looks alright, it looks a bit Halloween-y, which is cool, and her bird is dragon thing fits in with the Woodstodes theme so well. So, honorary Custodian. Nice. After Kyria Draxus, I actually worked on a slightly bigger model. We have an Adeptus Custodes Shield Captain on a Dawn Eagle jetbike. This guy was really fun to build. I absolutely loved him, and of course you can guess this giant weapon came from the Tree Lord sprue, and basically the whole build was inspired by Ghost Rider, the Marvel Comics superhero, the guy who goes around hunting for naughty people to take their souls back to hell. Flaming bike, glowing things, fire out the exhausts, glowing skulls. I'm super happy with this guy, and he turned out so well. And I did his skull in a pretty easy way. I just clipped off the front of it, attached a Citadel skull, and then smoothed over the rest with green stuff. It was pretty easy, and yeah, I recommend it. I bought an Auric Champions box, you saw it in the background of the whole army, and this is my updated Shield Captain with Melter Spear. Like I said, I wasn't too happy with my old one, but this just goes to show what like a year of improvement will do. I mean, look at this. This one is for once isn't kitbashed with a Kernoff Hunter or with a Tree Lord, apart from the shield. He's actually done with a Branch Witch, which is where this cool sickle scythe came from, as well as the horns, the faceplate, the tabard, and maybe this little greebly bit down here, this bug. He was brilliant and I love him. I'm particularly happy with how much I've improved on painting gems and glow effects, especially the eyes, the head. Yeah, absolutely love him. If you haven't guessed already, he'll be leading the Wardens when I play a game. And last, but certainly not least, is my Venerable Contemptor dreadnought. This guy is from the Forge World resin, Raven Guard Contemptor sprue for the main body, with some 3D printed gun, melter gun, and some bits box stuff that I bought online here. And he's just super cool. I think it really shows how far I've come in this last year. I'm particularly happy with the glowing effect on the back of him, and I just think he looks freaking cool. It was also my first time using this stuff. It's basically like a string that has been coiled and twisted or shaped into these little leaves, and it looks like really cool vines growing across his whole body. And I gave him quite a feral look, a feral pose, and I just think he's neat. And the thing I think I like the most is that he really does show how far I've come, because this was meant to be the marble that I've already painted. And if I compare him to the one I did about a year ago, look at that. I'm feeling pretty confident, pretty happy, and happy with where my Warhammer journey is taking me. I'm going to be working on a few more things, namely updating those Valoris. And if you want to see more, consider liking and subscribing. Right, this is Woody Minis. I hope you enjoyed.